This spike is a little shocking. It's really raging here.
Oh, yay, CNN came to my hometown again. Well, mostly because one particular activist journalist who goes by Ellie Reeve has decided to use my hometown as the hillbilly whipping boy and create these wonderful productions where they try and convince everyone that unless you are a dumb hillbilly like the people from my town, you will do what CNN tells you to do without question. You will not question anything. And then, of course, our overlords, our betters in the urban communities buy it hook, line, and sinker because they're so much smarter than we are.
Everybody's scared. Everybody's coming down with it. It's almost like a plague.
I had both shots of the vaccine, and people just acted like, oh, it doesn't help. It bothers me sometimes that people just act like COVID is a big joke. I always want to say, well, why don't you just come right up here to the cemetery and I'll show you my husband's grave and I can show you it's no joke.
Now, Joe Wetton was my friend and he was my neighbor. He just lives a few houses down from me. We used to go shooting together. I used to go take him shooting every now and then because he couldn't really drive anymore and he'd had a stroke and he was older and very high risk and I do miss the old guy.
Over the 5 days we spent in Carter County, Missouri, it felt like COVID was closing in around us. The positivity rate kept climbing and is now 32%. Some people we wanted to interview told us they'd just been exposed or were too sick to talk.
This is a chicken pepper. Hold that in your hand.
We first came to Van Buren in October 2020 when COVID was starting to surge in rural America. When we heard that one of the diners we'd interviewed people in had closed for COVID, we wanted to come back and see what had changed.
Yeah, well, she never gets around to really answering what's changed and why the store closed. Well, it's because the guy that owns that store starts work every day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's kind of hard to do when you're sick, you know? So he closed it for a couple of weeks.
By the end of this spring, many thought COVID was over.
I'd also like to apologize for the horrible audio quality that actually comes from CNN and Ellie Reeves' horrible fucking production team. They're really bad. She keeps mouth breathing into the mic like garbage, but, you know, all I can do is control the audio that comes off of my $4 Logitech mic. I can't control the audio that comes off of CNN's high-grade mouth breathing equipment.
In the past few weeks, it's raged through town. The vaccination rate is very low, with only 27% fully vaccinated.
The overwhelming majority of our patients that are admitted to the hospital with clinically severe COVID are unvaccinated.
Now, when he says that, I actually believe that most of the people admitted with severe COVID are unvaccinated. Now, we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm going to say that this guy is not from my hometown. He's from a town like an hour away, and they stick him in this video and try and make it look like he's from my hometown, but he's not, and no one here knows this guy.
I didn't realize how unvaccinated we were. I guess that's my fault. I didn't continue to push as hard as I should have to get people vaccinated because I thought everybody was, because the virus and the disease was abating, but I was wrong. It came back like a brush fire.
Are you vaccinated?
No, but I will be. I was pretty skeptical of it until I've kind of watched all this happen.
Jim's wife, Ruth, fought cancer for 12 years, but COVID killed her in 8 days. He says the doctor told her not to take the vaccine because of her chemo.
I guess CNN would prefer that you do what CNN tells you instead of your own doctor.
When did your wife die?
July the 20th. I talked to her up till Sunday before she died, and she said, this is bad. She said, you all need a shot. And I think she's right.
Last time we came here, the debate was over masks, and it had gotten very political.
We sit in the coffee shop and watch people walk in the door. We look at a mask and we all look at each other and we go, Democrat.
Later that fall, there was a COVID surge in the area. But the health center says this wave is much worse. In Van Buren, after just 2 days of school this August, about 20 kids tested positive. 5 days later, almost a quarter of students were under quarantine. The preschool had to close for 2 weeks.
Come get your food, Tyler.
People in town were gossiping about who had it and where they got it. And they'd all seen our last story.
The last story you did? Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of thought it was all bullshit myself.
Yeah, because it was, as I covered in my previous video, CNN came to my hometown.
Tell me more. Tell me why.
That ain't the way people are here. I think people here try to take care of each other.
Which, oddly enough, was exactly what I said in my previous video.
Those boys sitting in the coffee shop don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about COVID. They need to walk through the COVID ward. That's in your mind.
But Jim admits some people are pretty set in their views.
Good friend of mine, he hasn't had the shot, but everywhere he goes, if he goes in any place, he wears a mask. And he's probably one of the best guys I know. But you're not going to change anything about him. Maybe you ought to interview him.
Would he talk to him?
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't like what he tell you.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right, let me get my phone.
Hello?
Hey, I'm surrounded. I need you to come down here. I'm serious.
Who are you surrounded by?
Well, a bunch of women.
Okay, I'll be right there.
All right. Hey, they're going to interview you.
Oh, no, they ain't.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Can I sit down there and buy you?
Why do you not want the vaccine?
I ain't taking that shit. I ain't taking it. I don't like people trying to push a shot on me or something else because I'm this bull-headed this fella you ever seen.
Last fall, COVID put Wayland in the hospital for 7 days.
I was on everything they had. Steroids, full drip, plasma from people that had COVID, drug that they give my president, Trump, and they finally burned it out of me.
What's the difference, though, between the vaccine and the drugs that you did take, like Regeneron?
Well, yeah, I would have took anything. It wouldn't have mattered what it was.
But why would you trust Regeneron and not the vaccine?
Am I going to have to tell her?
I don't know. You know, they...
Well, the one thing is, they shafted my president. They would have had the vaccine, already had it, but they wouldn't give it to him because they knew damn good and well he'd be reelected. There wasn't nothing nobody could do. So they had to swindle around and skin around and keep it from him just as soon as the election was over. Here, we got it. You shafted my president. I ain't taking your medicine. Not from, I'll take what they give him, but I'm not taking yours.
He took the vaccine, though.
Well, he might have. I don't know that.
I think they give him the Regeneron.
They did give him that, but he did take the vaccine.
Later on, probably, yeah. I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know that. But that's what pissed me off, and I ain't taking it because I'm that bullheaded.
And that right there is the reason that Ellie Reeves even comes down here. She's looking for that soundbite right there. Well, because of Trump. Well, it's not really because of Trump. It may be for that one guy. But then she turns around and tries to extrapolate that out like that's what everybody thinks around here. And it's not fucking true. Just like everything else on CNN, it's not fucking true. Now, I have my own personal beliefs about the vaccine. The biggest belief that I have is that your decision to take the vaccine or not isn't between you and me, or you and CNN, or you and Trump, or you and Joe Biden. It's between you and your fucking doctor. Plain and simple. That's all there is to it. But I will share some of my personal observations, seeing as I'm just now coming off a quarantine from Delta variant here in this town that she's talking about. My mother and father-in-law were both vaccinated. They both caught COVID, but they're both very high risk, and they also weren't hospitalized. That's why I say that, yes, I kind of do believe that the vaccine will prevent severe illness, but it does not prevent you from catching it and transmitting it, because they caught it. They transmitted it to my wife, who transmitted it to my son and I, and I was the only one that wasn't vaccinated, and I was the only one that didn't get sick, other than my son, who's too small to be vaccinated, and he had a fever for about a day. So it's my belief that you're not doing your grandma a favor by getting vaccinated, you're doing yourself one. But all those decisions should be made between you and a medical professional, not you and some dopey-faced CNN activist journalist who looks like her parents are related. There's a reason that Ellie Reeves doesn't interview people like me, and if she did, she would not air the interview, because I would have some questions for Ellie. I would ask Ellie if Pfizer's ever been found guilty in a court of law for scientific fraud, and if Pfizer has ever been found guilty of bribing doctors. Has Pfizer ever been found guilty of a jury for racketeering fraud? Has Pfizer ever been found guilty of using children in life-changing medical experimentation without the knowledge or consent of their parents? Has Pfizer lied to regulators about the safety of their products? And has Pfizer ever been found guilty of breaking international law, including the Nuremberg Code, for unlawfully experimentation on human subjects? Because the answer to all of those questions is yes. You see, it's not about Trump. See, the reason I don't trust Big Pharma is not because of Trump, it's because of Big Pharma. The reason that I don't trust CNN is not because of Trump, it's because of CNN. The reason that I don't trust the government is not because of Trump, it's because of the government. And you can push that blame off on everyone else, but you've given everyone who pays attention every reason in the world not to trust a fucking thing that you say. Now go get your eyes straightened out. Don't be a fucking commie.